All right, so now we're recording this session. Our goal right now is to look at Max Weber's 1918 essay, Politics as Vocation, and have a conversation with him. Let's retire to the syllabus right quick. On the syllabus, I quoted for you the French philosopher René Descartes. You'll remember René Descartes perhaps because he famously gets credit for the phrase cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. But we're going to use Rene Descartes, where he says this: the reading of all good books is like a conversation with the noblest men of past centuries who were the authors of them. Nay, a carefully studied conversation where they reveal to us none but the best of their thoughts. So we're going to have we're going to be reading through books, the textbook and other things, and we're going to act like we're having a conversation with these people, right? So let's talk with Max Weber. Max Weber is understood as one of the early thinkers, one of the early founders of this modern study of sociology. Du Bois, in his famous book, Black Reconstruction, Du Bois in his famous book, The Philadelphia Negro, is also credited with being one of the founders of modern sociology. But for right now, we're dealing with Max Weber. In the year 1918, we're talking over 100 years ago, he delivered this lecture called Politics as Vocation. And one of the main things I want you to get from that lecture is that Weber tells us that politics equals power. Politics equals power. We earlier said that politics is about choice, common decisions being made by the government. Politics is also about change involving the primacy of elections. Politics is also about space, combining the dual characteristics of voice and agency. There's a recording out there for that to put more on it. But politics is about power, and that is a conclusion that we get being in conversation with Max Weber. So Weber then tells us, rather, we're going to have more conversations with Weber. We're going to ask Weber some questions. These questions you should put in your notes. And then Weber in this essay is going to give us some answers. I believe, if I haven't, I will post this essay so you can read it yourself, right? But let's do a few of these right now. We can go to 1918 in this essay where Weber calls politics as a vocation. What's a vocation? Let me write on the screen. Let's go with green today. What's a vocation? A vocation is something that you do. A vocation is an occupation, it's a job. So his essay here is entitled Politics as a Vocation, meaning politics as something you do, as opposed to theoretic politicians, people just sitting around and pontificating. He's talking about something that describes the empirical world. Let's ask Weber the fundamental question: what is the state? You should be taking some notes right now, I hope. And let's put that question in your notes. What is the state? Weber tells us that the state is a specific type of political organization where the official institutions and the society interact through the use of power. Let's do like the famous MC KRS-One once said: we need to break it down to its very last compound and see how it sounds. Weber tells us here that the state is a specific type of political organization. We just said that politics is about power. It is hard to write with the cursor. So politics is about power. So then where Weber says the state is a specific type of political organization, we hear him saying then that states organize power. Weber talks to us and says that the official institutions and the society are interacting. The official institutions then is the government. And then The society, another word for society is, I might have to buy something to do this easier. It is hard to write with this thing. That looks like I'm 10 years old, can't even write, right? But, so Weber tells us that the official institutions, which are the government, and the society, which is the people, that they interact through the use of power. What is power? Power is the ability to influence choice. Now let's do this. We can ask Weber not only what is the state, but we can ask Weber what are the 4 key characteristics of the state. What do we mean? Rather, how would we identify a state as opposed to something else out there on planet Earth? So Weber tells us 4 things. Number 1, the state is composed of a defined set of territorial boundaries. That means you have to know where this thing begins and where it ends. Secondly, Weber tells us that the official institutions enjoy a monopoly on rulemaking. That means that the official institutions, or the government, federal, is the entity that makes the rules. Thirdly, Weber tells us that the official institutions control the means of coercion. Control the means of coercion. If you are coercing someone, then you are forcing someone to do something. To control the means of coercion then means that the official institutions control the police forces, the military, and such. And then Weber tells us that this entity that has a defined set of territorial boundaries, where the official institutions enjoy a monopoly on rulemaking, where that rulemaking is backed up by the means of coercion. This entity, according to Weber, is internationally sovereign, where the word sovereignty is another word for power or independence. Weber, what are the 4 key characteristics of the state? Now, let's go somewhere else. Let's take a look at it. Let's go to Google Maps. We're on Google Maps, and let's see if we can define any entity that has Weber's 4 key characteristics. Young folks, in the words of Rakim, this is planet Earth, my place of birth, born to be the sole controller of the universe. Weber tells us that there are 4 key characteristics of the state. Let's turn our attention then to the country of Iraq. Boom, 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 boom. This is Iraq. You will please not recall, but acknowledge that the United States invaded Iraq back in the year 2003. Here we are in 2021, and the United States still has a few thousand troops on the ground in Iraq. Now, the question becomes, is Iraq a Weberian state? Are we able to know where Iraq begins and where it ends? Weber says the state has a defined set of territorial boundaries. Well, yes, we can see the lines right here on Google Maps, so we know Iraq has that. So far, so good. Weber tells us that all 4 of these key characteristics have to be in place at the same time, right? If you're missing one, then you don't have a Weberian state, you have something else. Weber then tells us that the official institutions have to enjoy a monopoly on rulemaking. The official institutions in Iraq are housed in Baghdad. The question then is, can Baghdad monopolize rulemaking all over the country? We're going to have to say no to that, because we know that in southern Iraq, there is a militia called the Sadr Brigade, Sadr, S-A-D-R, right? There's a guy here named Muqtada al-Sadr, and he has a small army. And the government in Baghdad does not want that, like you young folks say, they don't want that smoke. So they leave him alone for the most part in southern Iraq. That means then that clear. That means then that the government of Iraq does not enjoy a monopoly on rulemaking. And then for Weber, that's enough. If they can't do all four, then they're not a state. Let's continue. The third key characteristic is, does the official institutions control the means of coercion? We're going to say no to that again, because one more time, this guy named Muqtada al-Sadr, he controls a large swath of southern Iraq, and the government in Baghdad cannot tell him what to do with force. And then the question is the country internationally sovereign? Let's take a look at the United Nations. The United Nations is where the world, do I hit that right there? The United Nations is where the world sits in conference, right? Let's drill in, I'll do it the hard way, right? This is where the United Nations is. My computer is acting slow, but here's the United Nations complex. Let's go with this thing right here. Nope, I didn't, okay, I'm messing up. Oh, no, this is the button I need to hit, this one here, right? Okay, so this is the UN complex, right? We know that there are about 193 signatories to the United Nations. That means there's about 193 countries on planet Earth. These countries sit in assembly here in the United Nations once a year to make sure that there's some type of harmony in the policy, so that try to tamp down war, try to end human suffering, that kind of thing. When Iraq goes to the United Nations, Weber tells us international sovereignty means that essentially no other country can tell Iraq what to do. Is that true? Sorry, but probably not, because the United States still has a wide swath of control over, Iraqi policy. So Weber tells us that you need a defined set of territorial boundaries, a monopoly on rulemaking, control over the means of coercion, and international sovereignty. In the case of Iraq, they are missing 3 of the key components. According to Weber, then they are not a state. Let's go back to Google Maps one last time, if I could get there. And let's fall back out. And let's look at, well, let me just show you something now that I'm hanging out here, right? I'm from Brooklyn, and yeah, this is where, this is my old stomping grounds. This is where my mother is and such. Checking in. All right, anyway, so let's back up and let's consider the United States. Is the United States a Weberian state? Do we know where the United States begins and where it ends? Can we determine the borders? Yes, we can. Who monopolizes rulemaking in the United States? You do have 50 states, but the federal government, Article 6 of the Constitution, does have supremacy. So that's a check. Who controls the means of coercion? The United States military has National Guard troops. Some of you might even be a member of them, and they are able to be deployed at the drop of a dime, slow on January 6th, but the drop of a dime all over the world. And so I'm not over the world, all over the country. So the United States government does control the means of coercion. And then when you go to places like the United Nations, is the American government internationally sovereign? And it is quite internationally sovereign. It might even be, we need another phrase. It might even be super sovereign or imperial in its activity. So the United States comports to a Weberian model. Let's go back to Weber's. Are y'all still all right? I just want to check on you. I don't want to, we doing good so far?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's keep on going. All right, so we'll go back to Weber. The essay is Politics as Vocation. The year is 1918. And we just asked Weber, what is the state? He said the state is a specific type of political organization where the official institutions and the society interact through the use of power. We asked Weber, excuse me, what are the 4 key characteristics of the state? And we just covered them. Now let's ask Weber some more questions. We ask Weber, who is the state, right? Who is the state? And Weber tells us that the state is the government. The state is the citizenry. Let's go with yellow. The government is who is the state? The state is the government. The state are the citizens. And then the state is the public. Government, citizens, public. This is for your notes. You should absolutely write this down, right? Something's happening on my computer. All right. So there's that. Now this begs the question. We're making a difference between citizens and the public. Aren't they the same? What's the difference between the citizenry and the public? Well, we can be real clear. A member of the citizenry is someone who seeks to have an active, engaged, educated role in the politics of the day. A citizen is someone who's active in politics, even if that only means voting once every 4 years. We can juxtapose that to who are the members of the public. And so we're able to say quite clearly that the public are people that are living in the country. They are subject to the policies of the country, but they do not seek an active role in determining the policies of the country. These are people living in the country, but don't seek to be active in the country. Here comes a metaphor for you. Let's pick on Mr. Brown there, right? I think I just saw his picture. Let's say Mr. Brown is going to have the fellas over to his house. And Mr. Brown, y'all going to watch the game. Let's say y'all getting ready to watch the game, right? And so you guys, because you're good, upstanding college students, you guys get water to drink. You go and get some popcorn, and then you go and get some pizza, good, honest fun, and y'all going to sit down and watch the game. And so while you're sitting there and the water is being drank and the popcorn is being crunched and the pizza is being devoured and you're looking at the television, and then all of a sudden, this big old roach crawls across the front of your television. And this roach is big. I need a different color for roach. What's the color of a roach? Something brown, right? Yeah. And this roach is big, right? And you're like, wait a minute, where did this roach come from? And how did this roach get so fat inside my house? How did that roach get fat? Because he's living off your stuff. Every time you drop a crumb, that roach is right there to sap that crumb up. Every time you do something, that roach is there to pay the benefits. Now, that roach is so big and fat. Is that roach paying any bills? He is not. Did that roach chip in on the popcorn and the pizza and the whatever, the chips or whatever? No, that roach did not. So here you have this roach living off the product of your house, but he's not contributing to that product of the house, right? That's what we mean to say are people who are mere members of the public. A mere member of the public is someone who is living in the country. They're enjoying the benefits of living in the country, but they're not doing any of the work that is implicit in citizenship. This is a guy who's just living in the country. He doesn't vote. He doesn't join any political organizations. He doesn't pay attention to any news articles or anything. Yet this guy has all the mouth in the world when it comes to a stimulus check that might be coming to his mailbox or something like that, right? On the other hand, let's say I'm looking at Renee Bess's picture here. Let's say Renee Bess, she is the type of person that wakes up in the morning, she brushes her teeth and looks at the phone and reads the news. And she says, oh, Nancy Pelosi just took a vote today, and this is true, to strip the QAnon legislator out of Georgia away from her committee assignments, right? That Renee Bess here is paying attention to. Renee Bess is registered to vote. Renee Bess is paying attention to the voting record of members that are asking for her vote. And then when it's time to vote, Ms. Bess actually gets out there to vote. That then means that Ms. Bess is a full citizen. She is active, she is engaged, she is paying attention to the politics of the day. All right, that's what I want to press that point. You young folks there's too much on the line, and you are the product of a heritage with too much history. You have to engage yourselves. Do not be a political roach. Next point. We asked Weber, who is the state? He told us the government, the citizens, and the public. We need to understand what is the public. For Weber, the public is the group of people that are empowered with the authority to act on behalf of the state. And these people engage that authority with the legitimate use of force. Who empowers this group of people to act on behalf of the state? The citizenry does. What does the citizenry do to empower these people to act on behalf of the state? Just like we said, Ms. Bess is doing, they're voting, they're paying attention to politics, they're active and engaged in the political debates of the day. And so the government is the group of people empowered with the authority to act on behalf of the state. We just saw a change in your government just, over the last couple of weeks, right? The Democrats were successful with the victories of Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff in Georgia. Georgia was real critical this year. Georgia turning Democrat sealed Donald Trump's fate. Oh, let me show you something else. Georgia, with its 2 Senate victories, was then able to 9 bills, gerrymandering. Right, with these bills, Georgia was able to, turn the Democrats turn the state rather for the Democrats. Now, what we saw, I wonder if I'll be able to find it right quick, but what we saw just the other day is that the Republicans, here we go, the Republicans in Georgia have introduced a series of bills that they are acting as if will secure the vote, but we know what they're actually doing is looking to make it harder for Democrats to vote in Georgia. This is not a Georgia article. Okay, well, now that I'm looking for it, of course, I can't find it, but trust, this article is absolutely out there. All right. I appear to be having a glip. Uh-oh. All right. You folks with me back? Are we back?
Yeah, we're here.
Yes.
All right. It just blinked out, right? Something happened. Maybe that's the Republicans listening to my Zoom and they're like, don't tell them the truth. Don't tell them what's happening. All right. All right. Let me get back to the screen share here. I'm almost done. So hang on for just a few more minutes, please. What's going on? All right, here we go. Back to the screen share. All right, can you folks see my screen, please?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, so just to, I wonder if the recording stopped though. Well, it still says it's recording. All right, so that's what the government is, right? Just as by way of a definition, a group of people that are empowered with the authority to act on behalf of the state. Now, the next question, not what is the government, but the question becomes who is the government? And Weber tells us that the government are the elected officials and the bureaucrats. Elected officials and bureaucrats. What's the difference between an elected official and a bureaucrat, right? The elected officials are elected into office. I know that's the most stunning thing you've ever heard all day, but the phrase elected means that they put themselves up for vote. Bureaucrats, however, these folks are hired through the United States Civil Service. In the best case scenario, they take an exam. In other case scenarios, top level bureaucrats are nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate. So the government are the elected officials and the bureaucrats who by various means are empowered with the authority to act on behalf of the state. Wait, all right. Next point here, clear all drawings. All right, and so that's what we have here. I want you to keep in mind that, let me see if I can find it right quick. On page 8 of your textbook, the question is being asked of you. Hold on, let me do it right. I'm gonna show it to you. I'm almost ready. Here we go, here we go. Here we go, here we go, here we go. All right, all right, all right. All right, here's your book. Let's see if I can find page 8 quickly. My computer all of a sudden is acting funny. But all right, essentially what I want to show you here is that there is a purpose to government in this country. And your book is clear. The philosophers who think systematically about the role of government, they are clear. It's going to take me like an hour to scroll to page 8 in the book. And of course, it's not working. But essentially, the purpose of the government is to create order, okay? That's what I want. That's what I'm not able to show you, but I want to give you. The purpose of the government is to create order. The role of the government is to create order. We'll even say it this way: the nature of the government is to create order. All right. And so when you see that first test, I'll be asking you, like, what's the nature? What's the purpose of government? When we say what the nature of a thing is, we're asking what that thing is ultimately designed to do. Right? What's the government ultimately designed to do? For example, here is my cell phone. What is the nature of a cell phone? Is it the nature of a cell phone to be a frisbee and you throw it around? Is the cell phone meant to be cooked and you put it on a pot and put some salt and pepper on it? No, that's absolutely not the nature of a cell phone, right? What's the nature of a cell phone? To facilitate communication. So what is the nature? Here we go. I'm almost there. What's the nature of the government? The nature of the government is to create order. Let's turn our attention right here. All right, on page 8. The textbook is asking us what a government does. Read this with me. The government is designed to protect the sovereign territory of their citizens and provide for national defense. For your notes, the government creates military order. Next, what is the nature of the government? It is to preserve order and stability and create legitimacy. This is a form of social order. The government preserves social order. Next point, the government's job is to establish and maintain a legal system. The goal of the government then is to maintain legal order. This next point here says the purpose of the government is to provide for services which are called public goods. This is another example of the role of the government, for your notes, being to maintain social order. The goal of the government here is to raise and spend money. That then means that the role of the government is to create economic order. Economic order. And then lastly, the role of the government here is to socialize new generations. Political socialization. It doesn't have the word order in it, but the role of the government there is to engage in political socialization. I guess you can tell I'm having problems grabbing stuff on my computer right here. What I'm looking to do right this second is do a screen share of everybody in the what do you call it? The sign-on box. Okay, so we've covered some ground today, have we? What we've just said is we've looked at Max Weber's his 1918 essay. Wait, do you see this picture here? Uh, I wonder what you see. This is where we talk about political socialization. What do you see when you look at this picture? Do you see a kindly female police officer having fun with a young child? Or do you see the agent of the police pressing that young child saying, who did it? Tell me what happened. Who did it? Ha ha ha. Okay. And so I'm about to stop talking. What you need, what I would like for you to do is by tomorrow evening, I will upload some videos that you can watch where I'm walking through the rest of this material. Your responsibility, because we're going to meet once a week on 12 o'clock Eastern on Thursdays, is your job is to spend the weekend reading the material, chapter 1 and the slides multiple times. And then let's say by the 8th, by Monday, you start reading the slides on theories of democracy. We'll talk about it on the 11th, and then we'll have a test that'll be due by the 14th. I did a lot of talking. Y'all folks, how do we do on the first day of class? Let me end the recording.
We covered a lot.
Yeah, we did a little bit
You
of
did
work.
great.